Assalamualaikum to my beloved lecturer, Professor Dr. Anissa Binti Rumidi. So today I'm going to present an individual case study titled Protecting Your Retail Business from Supply Chain Disruption. This individual case study is all about the supply chain disruption during the pandemic of COVID-19. The pandemic of COVID-19 and other issues have combined to disrupt the normal flow of things both nationally and internationally. Before I go any further, allow me to explain a bit more about the pandemic of COVID-19. Early in December 2019, the coronavirus illness COVID-19 spread swiftly among people of Wuhan, China in China, as well as beyond the country, including Malaysia. An outbreak of deadly COVID-19 virus has not only taken the life of people but also severely crippled the economy. Due to strict lockdown, the manufacturing and logistics and activities has been suspended, and it has affected the demand and supply of various products as a result of a restriction imposed on shopkeepers and retailers. Therefore, supply chain disruptions can occur owing human-made disaster and natural calamities. Similarly, the outbreak of COVID infectious disease coronavirus disease 2019. According to Doggio event and Circular 2022, coronavirus disease has brought a global tragedy not only of human life but also economically activities like manufacturing, operations, supply chain and logistics, and several other sectors. So here I will explain more in the next slide about some question, which is first the what is consequences of pandemic, and second question is which company have an efforts to adapt their supply chain. The first question is the consequences of a pandemic event are hard to predict, says Koreiko Senior Director Analysis Adidas. However, the risks always exist and are augmented with further globalization and integration of supply chains, discussed with suitable example. So my first point for this question is during the pandemic of COVID-19, it has affected the global economy, especially in the retail industry, which has impacted the supply chain. According to the Mazzarino 2020, supply chain management experienced considerable difficulty dealing with unexpected demand for certain items when simultaneous transport and production restrictions were imposed at the beginning of the global outbreak in March and are still battling to recover. However, the businesses and other retailers are still now attempting to adapt to the new environment, and they may face some changes even after the pandemic has passed. For instance, the pandemic of COVID-19 has brought challenges to the Association of the Southeast Asian Nations, Asian Member State AMS, which in January and February 2020 faced negative supply shocks where they experienced a shortage of intermediate inputs. This is due to the Malaysian having the most restrictive limitations on the manufacturing industry, and it will cause the companies from Japan, Europe and the United States to cut relations with Malaysian suppliers, and this makes them have the problems in the supply chain. Second point is enormous pressure on healthcare supply chain. The pandemic of COVID-19 has caused substantial obstacle to global supply chain, and the lockdown have also caused the economy to slow down. One of the risks is that the citizens want masks and sanitizer, placing a major strain on healthcare supply network, since PPE is also required by healthcare professionals, putting a further burden on healthcare supply chain. Aside from that, it has caused a scarcity of 95 masks since manufacturers were unable to meet the increased demand. Furthermore, as disease spread throughout the world, a global shortage of ventilators and personal protective equipment, which is PPE, has become a rising issue, Therefore, some initiative must be strengthened by creating effective transportation for medical equipment, drugs, and humanitarian supplies. Hence, accommodative such a massive demand, car manufacturers are changing their focus to the production of medical equipment. As a proof, unexpected modification in the healthcare supply chain have been observed during this critical period. For instance, automobile manufacturers make ventilators, testing kits, and many more. Next, the PPE mask, glove, and hospital furnishing products are provided by the textile and fashion industry, while the PPE mask, glove, and hospital finishing products are produced by chemical factories. Therefore, this is one of the consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic. They are hard to predict, which is that they have experienced pressure in the healthcare supply chain. In addition, the consequences of a pandemic and their risks, including such as natural disaster, have immensely caused transportation and logistic disruptions. Transportation disruptions were defined as interruptions in actual movement that cause delivery from one point of a distribution chain to another to be delayed. It has shown that disruptions in transportation and logistic systems have had a substantial impact on supply chain operations. Moreover, by COVID-19 disease outbreak, limitations have rendered economic activities unworkable and disrupted transportation networks in the sea, rail, and especially trucking industry. Ultimately, trade barriers, demand limitations, and transportation interruptions have all had a substantial influence on supply chains and as a result, freight volumes. Other than that, the pandemic of COVID-19 also had produced a slew of serious delays in transportation and logistic services, including airline cancellations, which reduced air freight capacity, affected global circulation, and created labor shortage. Besides that, with the growth of e-commerce and online shopping in recent years, express shipping services have become increasingly significant in supply chain and logistics. Despite the pandemic of COVID-19, e-commerce services providers companies have grown rapidly. Hence, transportation and logistical services have a vital role in unpredicted pandemics like the COVID-19. It is because during the pandemic of COVID-19, the transportation and logistics have been affected. Other than that, the consequences of a pandemic of COVID-19 has a significant impact on the food and agricultural supply chain from two viewpoints, as indicated by Food and Agriculture Organization, which is food supply and food demand. However, COVID-19 impacts the whole cycle from the farm to the client, as demonstrated in the food inventory network, which is probably a key area of the economy. The pandemic of COVID-19 overcome worker investment limits, constrained food trade procedure, and financial development in the food creation organizations. However, COVID-19 also has disruptions in meat handling that can disrupt the fresh food market, resulting in simultaneously surpluses for producer and shortages for customer. For instance, for several individual items, demand has reduced, reminiscent of a temporary surplus supply such as milk for cheddar and potatoes for French fries. Concurrently, customers reported seeing empty racks in the store during the beginning of the outbreak, as food supply was disrupted by the unexpected demand overflow. Besides that, this has also given problems to the farmers, which are obligated to eliminate the food needs on the farm due to financial restrictions. For instance, dairy farmers lost numerous liters of milk every day owing to be clogged to supply chain. Moreover, the pandemic of COVID-19 gives an impact on the plants, which is that tea plants are harmed due to the logistical issue. However, the most difficult challenge in the food supply chain is obtaining resources from suppliers and ensuring the food transit farmers to the purchaser. To sum up, this is another risk due to the pandemic of COVID-19, which impact the food and agriculture supply chain, where during the pandemic we have a problem with in lack of manpower to work on the farmer and to take care of the farms. Meanwhile, they just leave their farms unattended, and it will result in unhealthy and infertile food sources, and at that time the country will also suffer huge losses. Last but not least, the influence of pandemic of COVID-19 was also a factor in the global sales of automobile manufacture. As proof, worldwide car sales have dropped to 63.8 million. For instance, the United States is facing the problem that its inventory ratio to its sale has been declining rapidly since April 2020. Other than that, over 1 million units were dropped in delivery by the Volkswagen Group and Toyota. The consequences is, during the pandemic of COVID-19, Volkswagen temporarily closed its European manufacturing units in March 2020 for a few months, as well as to Toyota. Therefore, both Volkswagen Group and Toyota are having a problems, which are the Volkswagen Group has reported a revenue reduction of just 30 billion euros, while Toyota reported a drop of 2 trillion Japanese yen. Other than that, the pandemic of COVID-19 also had impact on the customers' perceptions of their vehicle requirements. In a 2020 study, 67% Chinese respondents said that the pandemic had caused them to evaluate the number of cars they required for their homes. Therefore, it is proven that the pandemic impacted motor vehicle manufacturer worldwide sales. For the second question is, they asked us to give a suitable example for retail executives to mount urgent efforts to adapt their supply chain, whether by revising their purchase order and merchandising plans, or by reallocating all kinds of resources such as working capital, inventory, employees, transport capacity, and many more. Before that, let me show you guys a graph. The graph above shows that the change in demand for essential items versus non-essential items in each country between April 2019 and April 2020 in percent. According to the Daryl Channel 2020, the example of essential items are included in several categories such as consumer electronics, grocery and food retailers, and pharmacy, while non-essential items are home appliances, luggage and travel accessories, and apparel. Besides, this data have shows that during the pandemic, many countries allows only essential service sectors to operate while closing the non-essential services. Therefore, retailers have been forced to take a quick measure to change their supply chains, whether by revising purchases, order, and merchandising plans or reallocating a variety of resources based on the demand after, during, and post-pandemic of COVID-19. Even though during the COVID-19, many firms still cannot survive and they face some problems such as revenue losses, value chain disruptions, but there are several retailers abroad such as Costco, Nordstrom, Target, and Walmart that have all survived from the COVID-19. Allow me to begin with my first answer for question 2. For your information, I separate my answer with two types of answer, which is first during the pandemic of COVID-19 and second is post-pandemic of COVID-19. So first and foremost, during the pandemic of COVID-19, 7-Eleven is one of the example of company affected by the pandemic of COVID-19. 7-Eleven is a global success convenience store. Currently, 7-Eleven has more than 71,100 locations in 17 countries, including Malaysia, and now there are more than 2,400 stores nationwide, serving 900,000 customers daily in Malaysia. Besides, maintaining and even increasing investment in technology was one of the most important methods for 7-Eleven to keep growth on track. During the pandemic of COVID-19, the retailers have been ensuring that their employees' lives and livelihood are protected. Hence, the retail supply chain executive also need to ensure the customer can buy the things they need while also protecting the health and well-being of both consumer and supply chain workers if they respond creatively and resourcefully to the pandemic. Therefore, one of the alternative 7-Elevens takes to adapt their supply chain while protecting the customer and employees is that they apply the technology in their businesses. For instance, they transform their digital loyalty app into the new My 7-Eleven apps. New software or applications that 7-Eleven has created on a completely new platform have featured new experiences, discounts, and method to be rewarded so that the customer will enjoy the special reward and exclusive discount through their loyalty app. This is one of the 7-Eleven efforts during the pandemic to boost its sales and adapt its supply chain. In this way, the safety of employees and buyers will be guaranteed because during the pandemic season, the buyers are very limited to visit the store. So with this 7-Eleven application, buyers can buy safely and use all the discount provided by 7-Eleven as well as possible. For the second point, during the pandemic of COVID-19, 7-Eleven shows their effort to adapt their supply chain by improvising efficiency in supply chain. The supply chain is very core of every businesses and they are constantly striving to increase efficiency and optimize their operation, just like 7-Eleven. Their main focus for the supply chain during the pandemic of COVID-19 is to assure constant fulfillment to the store while driving down costs and delivering a more equitable income. 7-Eleven are delighted with their success in terms of on-shelf availability. Besides that, 7-Eleven also recognize that more facilities for fresh food and time-sensitive perishable are necessary and will try to achieve this. It is because during the pandemic of COVID-19, the 7-Eleven was provided with a variety of product lines including fresh foods, bakery snacks, and also the Malaysian local food such as nasi lemak. Other than that, by improvising the product line of 7-Eleven, it has made that 7-Eleven a one-stop shopping place, as customer can buy whatever is necessary for them at 7-Eleven store instead of going to supermarket. At the same time, it will protect the health between buyers and sellers during the COVID-19, because there is no need to queue to go to the supermarket or hypermarket to buy something, but they can even just go to the nearest convenience store such as 7-Eleven to get various types of goods. Other than that, Mr. DIY is one of the companies on the list affected by COVID-19 because their revenue dropped during the pandemic, but has gone up a bit in 2021 because during the pandemic, Mr. DIY has come up with some project to overcome it. In the year 2021, Mr. DIY made immediate efforts to adapt its supply chain in terms of revising its purchase order. As a proof, during the pandemic of COVID-19, Mr. DIY offered personal protection equipment to medical health care and uniform frontliners. Meanwhile, they also provide them with face masks, face shield, sanitizer, and protective equipment to keep students and people, the elderly, and impacted population safe. Mr. DIY has a flexible business strategy that has grown over the last 70 years to become one of the firms with a low cost structure and high profit margin. Moreover, Mr. DIY also got distributor certification from Malaysia's Medical Device Authority, which is MDA, in November 2021 to market COVID-19 saliva test kit to the public. With this alternative, Mr. DIY can maximize its return on investment because they sell their merchandise based on the current market demands. Now, let's move to the post-pandemic of COVID-19. My first point is Mr. DIY has a robotic e-commerce warehouse. Mr. DIY has upgraded its warehouse technology by operating its first robotic e-commerce warehouse in Seri Kembangan, Selangor. The 65,000 square foot warehouse is equipped with programmable robot that can fulfill online order 200% faster than manual method, resulting in a 200% increase in operational efficiency. Mr. DIY 23 programmable robotics can complete online order faster than the previous manual approach. It resulted in 67% boost in operational efficiency, and their distribution center operations completed more than 249,000 orders since they enhanced their warehouse technology, which we refer to as a robotic e-commerce warehouse. Not only that, Mr. DIY robotic e-commerce warehouse can limit the probability of human error, and its design idea allow the warehouse to acquire a range of commodities, providing buyers a choice of more than 2,000 products online. As a result, Mr. DIY has made certain modifications and attempts to adapt their supply chain by improvising their warehouse, which is rising in e-commerce with the debut of robotic distribution following the COVID-19 pandemic. Indirectly, the sales of Mr. DIY also will be increased. Last but not least, after the outbreak of COVID-19, 7-Eleven Malaysia Holdings Berhad has introduced the new 7 key face store format. The 7 store format is a refreshed concept and it has improved its product offerings to the customer and also the experience in the store. However, it is very different compared to the previous 7-Eleven format, which previously the 7-Eleven is more the convenience store, where the product they provide is not all like the product they offer in the 7 store format. For instance, in the cafe store format, they provide a variety of ready-to-eat meals, beverages, and snack. Therefore, 7 have chosen a good supplier for their store because the supplier was halal and Sharia compliant. In the businesses, finding a good supplier is crucial to further increase sales as well as to 7 They have shown that their sales have increased by around 29.2 million and more after the pandemic of COVID-19. Besides, according to the news, which is the Star, it states that 7 store format has a bright future and will continue to grow for the next year. To conclude, 7-Eleven has adapted its supply chain by revising its purchase order and merchandising plan because it followed the trending demand for their customer, which was to upgrade its convenience store to the cafe store.